Hey, Michael here. This is the second part of my looking back at The Last of Us in 2020 video. It's going to be a little bit shorter than the first one. Luckily, this one's going to be primarily analyzing the story. The first video covered, the gameplay, the crafting systems, and everything in between. This one, since I've already covered those, I didn't feel a need to really talk about those a ton. This one's going to take place from the middle point of summer all the way through the end of the game. It's going to start off right after Ellie and Joel jumped off the bridge in Pittsburgh after being chased by a Humvee, and that was right after Henry and Sam abandoned them. And one thing I did notice too in the first video was I did have some audio issues throughout, some inconsistency. This one's should be a lot more consistent. If it isn't, just let me know. That had to do with just getting used to recording audio and background noise and all that. But this one should be a lot more consistent for you. So without further ado, this is Looking Back at The Last of Us in 2020, Part 2. Joel and Ellie are luckily okay after their jump from the bridge, and they were actually saved by Henry and Sam. Joel isn't too appreciative though, considering that they left them behind in the first place.
See? What'd I tell you, huh? He's good. Everything's fine. Sam's the one who spotted you. You guys are taking quite a bit of water. What's wrong? Henry! Get back, son! Hey. He's pissed, but he's not gonna do anything.
You sure about that?
Stop!
Joel?
He left us to die out there.
No. You had a good chance of making it, and you did. But coming back for you meant putting him at risk. Stay back. If it was the other way around, would you have come back for us? I saved you.
He saved me too. We would have drowned.
I mentioned before how great Naughty Dog is with environmental storytelling, but what follows is my favorite piece of environmental storytelling they've ever had. Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam have to make their way through a sewer system to get to Henry's survivor group, and what they soon come to find out is that this used to be a haven for survivors just like themselves. Outside of the sewer system, you find a note inside of a docked boat that was written by a guy named Ish. He implies he's been out on the open ocean for months, avoiding the destruction wrought by the cordyceps infection. Although when his supplies ran out, he was forced to bring his boat to shore and take shelter inside of the sewer system. You find various news clippings he's collected, illustrating the downfall of the world and his decision to become a sewer mold man. Once you complete another boring environmental puzzle, you find a castle. Sorry, a painted castle. This was a haven for what looks like a large group of survivors, and you'll find notes lying around throughout explaining how it was actually created, although the large amount of infected inside tell you that it didn't end well. There's so much thought put into this society. For example, you find out how they're able to get fresh water down into the sewers, and you even find out how they got their enjoyment when you find their rec room. As you get deeper, the story of this society gets more and more devastating, as you realize how no society is truly safe from this world. No matter the precautions, the outside world will infect any and every safe haven eventually. The notes you find succeed in actually getting you to care for Ish and his people. They successfully tell an interesting story from beginning to end. BioShock is my favorite game of all time, and how it handles its environmental storytelling is one of the major reasons why. So I absolutely love what Naughty Dog did for this section in the sewers, and I wish they included more storytelling like this throughout the game. One thing that becomes very apparent by this point in the sewers is that Henry and Sam's relationship is strained due to Henry's overprotectiveness of Sam. Sam clearly isn't as capable as Ellie, even at almost the same age. Obviously, Henry's overprotectiveness comes from his love for Sam as a brother. Joel and Ellie have become closer of their journey, but they aren't blood ultimately. So Joel is hesitant at first, but ends up trusting Ellie to take care of herself because of how competent she has proven herself so far. Sam clearly has lived a sheltered life compared to Ellie, but he still isn't shielded from all of the bad in the world. In Pittsburgh, Henry wouldn't even let Sam grab a toy he liked because it's non-essential. Sam gets nothing but the bad aspects of the current world, because Henry thinks that will keep him alive. In a life or death situation near the end of the sewers, Sam is the only one capable of unlocking the exit, due to his small size, and Henry still refuses to let Sam to even try to help. Sam luckily ignores his brother and locks the door anyways, but it still stands that Henry was willing to risk all of their lives just to potentially keep their brother out of harm. This is a logical fallacy in itself, but that never crosses Henry's mind. All of this ties back into Joel's survivor mindset, and what's truly important in this world: surviving or living. Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam are able to escape out of the sewers by the skin of their teeth, after being chased by all of the former denizens of this former safe haven. Outside, you're free to explore a large suburban area that is a little too close to our current world. Houses are boarded up with signs that read, "You loot, I shoot." Joel talks about how everyone barricaded themselves in their homes, bearing down while the infection spread, which makes this game even more believable now, considering we are in the midst of a worldwide pandemic and the same thing is happening. Exploring these suburbs are kind of a delight in retrospect, because it's a moment that you're free to finally breathe, and you learn more about all of the characters at the same time. Ellie and Sam play darts together and bond over how strange the world actually was 20 plus years ago, while Henry gets nostalgic, remembered the cookouts he had with his dad before the world collapsed. Although Joel's survivor mentality keeps him from being truly nostalgic of the past. And he might actually be right for doing so, because before you know it, you're thrusted into one of the most fun and thrilling encounters in the whole game. A sniper takes aim at the four of them after they drop into a new section of the suburbs. Joel takes the lead and agrees to sneak around and flank the sniper. Similar to the combat encounters involving the Humvee in Pittsburgh, you have to avoid being in sight of the sniper at the end of the street, all the while fighting the loads of enemies storming your position. This is one of my favorite encounters, because the actual area is massive, and you can tackle it in multiple ways that play very differently. Depending on which side of the street you head down, the enemies use different tactics, and it feels like a completely different encounter entirely. The sniper becomes such an oppressive presence throughout that when you finally make it to him, it's all the more satisfying. Shit, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to mention Naughty Dog's insanely impressive beaded door tech. I mean, just look at this. And this is somehow the only beaded door in the whole game. If you agree with me in that this is a travesty, then please sign my change.org petition for Naughty Dog to put beaded doors in future titles. And most importantly, to license out their coveted beaded door tech to other developers. I want to see Spider-Man swinging around only to get tangled in a beaded door in his next game, or I'm gonna riot. Alright, back to the sniper. Joel takes him down with relative ease and then covers Ellie, Sam, and Henry as they're being chased by hunters further down the street. Yes, as you soon find out, these are the same hunters from Pittsburgh, and they brought their handy Humvee along to take you down also. This sniper segment is a fun release after the grueling encounter you just survived through, and you finally get revenge on the Humvee crew that's been plaguing you for the past couple hours. Hearing all this destruction, infected aren't far behind from these hunters, and you have to save Henry and Sam after they're ambushed. The four of them are forced to escape to the radio tower from the largest wave of infected they've seen yet, but they luckily make it no worse for wear. No one from Henry and Sam's group ends up making it, but Joel and Henry still get the chance to finally bro out when talking about motorcycles. Ellie tries to bro out with Sam, but things don't go as expected.
Well, it's safe to say those two have officially bonded. What are you doing?
Taking stock of all the food we found today.
I see. And how are we doing on canned peaches?
Did Henry send you?
No? Why would Henry send me?
To make sure I'm not fucking up somehow.
I'd say we all did pretty good back there. Especially you. Is everything all right?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay. Well, have a good night.
How is it that you're never scared?
Who says that I'm not?
What are you scared of?
Let's see. Scorpions are pretty creepy. Being by myself. I'm scared of ending up alone. What about you?
Those things out there. What if the people are still inside? What if they're trapped in there without any control of their body? Scared of that happening to me.
Okay. First of all, we're a team now. Okay, we're gonna help each other out. And second, they might still look like people, but that person is not in there anymore.
Henry says that they've moved on, that they're with their families, like in heaven. Do you think that's true?
I go back and forth. I mean, I'd like to believe it.
But you don't.
I guess not.
Yeah. Me neither.
Oh. All the serious talk. I almost forgot. There. If he doesn't know about it, he can't take it away. All right. I'm pooped. I'll see you tomorrow. Damn. That smells good.
Morning.
Where's Sam?
I'll let him sleep in for once.
Oh.
Well, if you want him to join us, you can go wake his ass up.
Okay. Sam?
The hell? Shit, he's turning!
That's my fucking brother!
Screw it!
Shit!
Ellie? Ellie, are you all right?
Oh my god.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam?
Henry? Ellie, stay there. Henry?
What have you done?
I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
It's your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry! Henry, no!
Oh my god.
It's hard not to see what happens with Henry and Sam coming. It's a trope that's been done before in zombie media countless times, but it still manages to be shocking by the time it actually happens.
Here we go.
That's due almost solely to the direction and acting of the scene. Although what happens to Henry and Sam is predictable, its place in the overall narrative and how it connects to Joel's transformation throughout makes it an important part of the story overall. Henry chose to both shield Sam from the dangers of the world while also letting him get none of the good of the world. It's the survivor mentality that Joel has to its full extent, and it shows how destructive it truly could be if not controlled. He clearly hasn't fully let what happened set in. You realize that to be the case when Ellie mentions how disappointed she still is that she didn't leave the toy she kept for Sam at his grave. And Joel can even talk about their deaths. One of the many collectibles in the game are collectible comic books from a series Ellie loves, and the main character's catchphrase from the series is "Endure and Survive." Joel and Ellie take this catchphrase as their own throughout the journey, and it starts as more of an inspirational phrase for them, a push to continue and not give up in this unrelenting world. But as you make it through the game, it becomes more and more toxic. Joel has been enduring and surviving for 20 plus years, and for what? He has nothing except his own life. But what's the point of living when you have nothing to live for? We'll come back to that later, because the start of Fall picks Joel and Ellie's journey up at a hydroelectric dam in Wyoming. It luckily turns out to be the hydroelectric dam Joel's brother Tommy is currently working on. Tommy is part of a large group in Jackson, Wyoming, who have a large settlement outside of this dam. Turns out Baby Bro is married and is one of the leaders at the head of this group. Tommy leads Joel through the dam to catch up while his wife Maria takes care of Ellie. While exploring the dam, you'd almost have to be blind to not see a fight coming soon. Not a fight between Joel and Tommy, mind you, no matter how badly they left things off last time they were together. I'm talking about all of the waist-high pieces of cover you see every 5 feet around the environment. Before I get to how disappointing that actually is, Joel and Tommy get some one-on-one time, and you finally find out what Joel's been planning all along.
So why'd you leave Boston?
I've been on quite the adventure, little brother.
I reckon it's got something to do with that girl.
It's got everything to do with that little girl.
Well, go on then.
She's immune.
Immune to what? Oh,
Seen her,
come on.
I know, I've seen her breathe enough spores to take down a dozen men. And nothing. Now, I wouldn't have believed it neither. But I can show you.
All right. I'll bite. Why bring her here?
I was supposed to deliver to the Fireflies. The way I figure they're your boys, you finish the job, you collect the whole damn payment.
I haven't seen a Firefly in years.
You know where they are. Now, I'm not asking for much, Tommy. I just want some simple gear, enough to set me on my way.
What makes you think I'd do this for you?
This isn't for me, Tommy. This is for your damn cause.
My cause is my family now. You ain't talking about some walk in the park here.
Jesus, boy. Have Maria get some of your born-again friends to do it.
They got families too.
Tommy, I need this.
You want some gear? Sure. But I ain't taking that girl off your hands.
This is how you gonna repay me, huh?
Repay you.
For all those goddamn years I took care of us.
Took care. That's what you call it? I got nothing but nightmares from those years.
You survived because of me.
It wasn't worth it.
I bring you the cure from mankind, and you wanna play the pissy little brother.
We ain't back in Boston. You lay your hands on me again, it won't end well for you.
The hell is that?
We're under attack.
He wasn't bringing Ellie to Tommy to find out where the Fireflies research facility is actually located. He was bringing her to Tommy for him to take her to the Fireflies. It's obvious as to the reason why, even though it's not outright stated. Tommy starts off the one-on-one by giving Joel an old picture of him and Sarah he found back in Texas. But Joel doesn't want it. Endure and survive. Looking back at the past won't do him any good. Although he's too blind to see that he's actually the only one living in the past right now, when trying to pawn off Ellie to Tommy. This is the most video game moment in the whole game. Now I know that seems like an oxymoron in itself, but these next few encounters are some of the most needless in the game. Not to mention they are some of the most conventional. All of these encounters at the dam play like any other cover-based shooter. Instead of the large sandbox areas you've gotten used to prior, these areas are structured more like a Call of Duty map. 3 tight lanes with some cover scattered about takes away almost everything I love about the combat. These encounters take up less than 15 minutes of the game ultimately, and aren't a black mark on the whole experience. They show what The Last of Us easily could have become underneath the tutelage of a less talented developer, which is interesting to me in a what-if scenario.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Joel! Oh man, they were coming in from every direction, then Maria was like, we gotta run, and so we dove over these tables, and this huge guy blasted with a shotgun.
Slow down. Listen, hey, are you hurt?
No!
God damn it. I need to talk to you.
Absolutely not. You tell him to go find somebody else.
Maria, I can't have this hanging over my head.
Do you have any idea how many men we lost here today?
What's that all about? Does that have anything to do with me?
Talk about it later.
Did he tell you where the lab is?
We'll talk about it later.
Later. Right.
It takes one fuck up. One fuck up and then I turn into one of those widows, okay?
I have to do this. I don't know what else to say.
Fine.
Maria.
Here we go.
You. If anything at all happens to him, it's on you.
Ellie's not dumb, and she starts to suspect something is up soon enough. She sneaks off almost right before Tommy decides to take her. So Joel and Tommy rush off and chase her down on horseback. They luckily find her at a farmhouse not far from Jackson.
Is this really all they had to worry about? boys, movies, deciding which shirt goes with which skirt. It's bizarre.
Get up. We're leaving. Come on.
And if I say no?
Do you even realize what your life means? Huh? Running off like that, putting yourself at risk? It's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck
than...
that.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
I'm not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad. And we are going our separate ways.
Get it together. We're not alone.
I got two walking in.
There's more inside already.
This is one of the most powerful scenes in The Last of Us. Everything from the writing to the acting is just fantastic. It's the moment you've been waiting for the whole game. Ellie finally calls Joel out. She knows about Sarah, and she tells him that she isn't her. He can't continue to live in fear of getting close to others. Joel continues to relent against it, but he does eventually dwell on it. That is after you take out the hunter storming the house. This sequence is also one of my favorites in the game, because it truly makes you feel like you're hunting these people one by one. The house you're in has loads of rooms and has 2 floors. Most likely you've already searched the house too, since you had the chance to before even finding Ellie. So you know the house's layout, and you're free to take out these hunters on your terms. This sequence proves how great Naughty Dog is at combat design and pacing it side by side with the story. After that cutscene, it's hard to focus on combat, but this section puts you in such a position of power that you don't necessarily need to. It avoids the pitfalls the other combat encounters from Fall have fallen into because A, this house is much more non-linear than the sandboxes beforehand, and B, you're focused on what happens next in the story and you don't even have much time to think about the combat. And before you know it, you've came to the end of the game. Joel brings Ellie to Tommy and he takes her to the Fireflies while Joel goes on more wacky post-apocalyptic adventures. Of course not.
Ellie, get off your horse. Give it on back to Tommy. I'm gonna hang on to this fella, if that's all right with you. Go on, don't make me repeat myself.
What are you doing?
Your wife kind of scares me. I don't want her coming after me.
Sorry for stealing your horse.
Look, come back to town. Let's discuss it at least.
You know me, my mind's all made up. University, Eastern Colorado. How do I find this lab?
It's in the science building. Looks like a giant mirror. You can't miss it.
You take care of that wife of yours.
There's a place for you here. You know?
You good?
I'm good.
Adios, little brother.
After a time skip, Joel and Ellie find themselves at the university where the Fireflies are located. You don't have to make it through that much of the university to realize that something is wrong. It seems to be deserted, but there are signs that the Fireflies have either been here previously or have moved further into the campus. Here at the university, you get to use the horse used in the previous chapter more thoroughly. That, combined with how open the university is, makes this section one of my favorites. Other than the slowly creeping dread you get from how deserted the university is, the university is mostly a peaceful place. I mean, sure, you could run across some infected and a bloater, but for the most part, you're free to explore the university at your own leisure. And something is calming about that in a way. The artists at Naughty Dog nailed the aesthetic of a university in Fall. It was hard for me not to reminisce about the university I went to at the same time. That's only part of the reason why this section is calming. The other reason is that unlike any other section of the game, you aren't being pursued on a time limit, following a companion, or in a heavily linear section. Not to mention that this section has some of the best character moments in the whole game. Joel and Ellie are aware that something is off with the university, but they're still hopeful that the Fireflies are deeper in. So they calmly talk about what their lives were like before they met each other and their dreams and ambitions. Brought on by being in this environment for higher learning and development, Ellie talks about how she's always wanted to be an astronaut more than anything, while Joel talks about his life before the apocalypse and how he dreamed of becoming a country singer when he was younger. This section truly fleshes out these characters because there are almost no barriers between the two at this point. After Joel finally shows that he cares about Ellie and what happened to Sarah was acknowledged, the two of them are holding nothing back between each other, and they become close. Oh yeah, I also somehow forgot about the best part of the university. The monkeys. I mean, look at these guys. They're adorable. But they aren't only adorable, they also contribute to one of the most tense sections in the whole game. Once Joel and Ellie make it to the research center at the university, they realize something is clearly off. It's completely deserted, or at least seems to be, until they start to hear movement the further they move into the facility. Depending on your perspective, it's luckily just some of the monkeys that you saw earlier. The Fireflies were conducting infection tests on these monkeys in the hopes of finding a cure. So they're infected monkeys. They're still adorable though, so you'd still have to fight me to keep me away from them.
You're looking for the Fireflies. They've all left.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm dead. Or I will be soon. Got me some time to reflect. Been years that felt like we were... fucking thing was a giant waste of time. I'm not gonna do this anymore.
Come on.
Looking for the others. They've all returned to St. Mary's Hospital in Salt Lake City. You'll find them there. Still trying to save the world. Good luck with that.
Do you know where that is?
I know the city.
Is it far?
It ain't close. I mean, on horseback.
What? Fireflies?
Get down!
This combat sequence is one of my favorites, due to how open it is, and similarly to the house you fought in near Jackson, you're able to study the layout of the sandbox before you even know you'll have a combat encounter. You're forced to handle this encounter differently because no matter where you are, it's incredibly easy for another enemy to see you. Windows surround you no matter where you are, and they allow the hunters to flank you. It's a thrilling encounter, but no matter what you do, it doesn't end well.
What do you want me to do? What? Oh man. Joel?
I'm gonna need you to pull.
Okay. Alright, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Let's get to the damn horse.
After Ellie pulls Joel off the rebar, she tries to lead him out of the research center, but Joel wants her to just leave him. Ellie proves to be more than capable of killing at this point, so she has no problem with taking down the hunters they run into. It ends with Ellie basically carrying Joel out of there, and this turns out to be more important than you think.
You're so singing for me.
You wish.
I think we're safe. Joel? Joel? Shit. Joel, here. Oh, get up, get up, get up. You gotta tell me what to do. Come on. You gotta get up. Joel?
Winter is almost unanimously everyone's favorite season of the whole game. It's such a drastic change from what you've played before, and has some of the best storytelling in the game. I love how it starts first and foremost because the player is left in the dark on what has happened between the end of fall and winter. Is Joel dead? Sure seems like it, since you're playing as Ellie, and the scene in fall at the end when Ellie starts to carry Joel almost seems like passing the torch in a way. You won't find out what happened to Joel for a while, and that adds an element of mystery but primarily increases the tension tenfold. Not only within the story, but the actual gameplay. Ellie plays similarly to Joel, but she's much more fragile and weak. That's not to take away from how capable Ellie actually is, but at the end of the day, she's still a 14-year-old. She can't knock out enemies like Joel can, and her stealth takedowns aren't stealthy at all. Joel is a beefcake. He can control someone's body and reactions while choking them out. Ellie obviously can't, so she's forced to use her small pocket knife to take down enemies, and of course they don't go down quietly. Shotguns and rifles almost knock Ellie down when firing. Getting hit with a gunshot or a fist knocks Ellie around like a pinball. Before I get ahead of myself though and get more into the gameplay of Winter, let's talk about how Winter starts. You play as Ellie while she is hunting a buck for food. As the player, you start off Winter by wondering what happened to Joel, and silently hunting this buck gives you nothing else to think about. Once you hit the buck with an arrow, it flees to an abandoned mine, but it's dead by the time Ellie catches up to it. Two other survivors named David and James are waiting for Ellie by the time she catches up to the buck.
We just want to talk.
Any sudden moves and I put one right between your eyes. Ditto for buddy boy over there. What do you want?
Name's David. This here's my friend James. We're from a larger group. Women, children. We're all very, very hungry.
So am I. Women and children, all very hungry too.
Well, maybe we could trade you for some of that meat there. What do you need? Weapons? Ammo? Clothes?
Medicine! Do you have any antibiotics?
We do. Back at the camp. You're welcome to follow us
I'm
back.
not following you anywhere. Buddy boy can go get it. He comes back with what I need. The deer is all yours. Anyone else shows up...
You put one right between my eyes.
That's right.
2 bottles of the penicillin in a syringe. Make it fast. Go on.
I love these scenes with David because you're almost in the dark as much as he is in regards to Ellie.
Of course.
The one thing you do know is that as soon as Ellie says that she needs medicine, is that Joel must still be alive. That's a relief, but Ellie is still stuck with a man who could easily overpower and kill her, so tension continues to stay high.
There. You know, you really shouldn't be out here all on your own.
I don't like company.
I see. What's your name?
Why?
Look, I understand it's not easy to trust a couple of strangers. Whoever's hurt, you clearly care about them. I'm sure it's gonna be just fine.
We'll see.
David is one of the best characters in The Last of Us, and it's a transformative performance for one of the video game industry's most prolific voice actors, Nolan North. Yes, that is Nathan Drake himself.
Another gun?
These scenes with David are completely absorbing because the player and Ellie have no idea if they can actually trust him.
No.
He's the nicest survivor Ellie has come across the whole game, and that raises multiple red flags. No matter his true intentions, Ellie is forced to team up with him against a horde of infected in the mine, in one of the most harrowing encounters in the whole game. These encounters are my favorite infected encounters in the game because of how dire each battle actually is. Unlike when you have played as Joel prior, Ellie has a set amount of resources at the start of the first infected encounter. The designers can then accommodate for that specific amount of resources and create incredibly thrilling encounters that you almost always barely survive through. Once David and Ellie kill the Horde, they head back to the Buck to wait for James to come back with the medicine.
Well, you handled yourself pretty nice back there. Whew. I'd say we make a pretty good team.
We got lucky.
Lucky? No. No such thing as luck. Now, you see, I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
I do. And I can prove it to you. Now, this winter, that's been especially cruel. A few weeks back, I sent a group of men out to a nearby town to look for food. Only a few came back. They said that the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man. And get this, he's a crazy man traveling with a little girl. You see, everything happens for a reason. Don't get upset. It's not your fault. I'm just a kid. James, lower the gun.
No way, David. I'm not gonna let her go.
Lower the gun. Now give her the medicine.
The others won't be happy about this.
Yeah, well, that's not your concern.
Move the fuck out of the way.
You won't survive long out there. I can protect you.
No, thanks.
The hunters end up tracking Ellie back from the mine to Joel. She tries to escape and lead them away from Joel, but after killing her horse, they finally catch up to her. Similarly to the infected encounters, the encounters against these hunters as Ellie are some of the best in the game. Primarily that's due to how weak Ellie is compared to Joel. It limits your options as a player, but it also forces you to use different strategies that you did as Joel. As I mentioned earlier, The Last of Us's gameplay is at its best when you're scrambling around trying to find any advantage you can against enemies. Whether that is finding an important resource that can turn the tables, or finding a nice spot to hide while waiting for the enemies to turn their back on you. This season is nothing but encounters like this, and is one of the primary reasons why Winter is my favorite season in the game. Ellie puts up a good fight, but it's not long before she's captured by David himself.
Keeping you alive here. There you go. There you How are you feeling?
Super.
Here. You should eat. I know you're hungry. Been out for quite some time.
What is it?
It's deer.
With some human helping on the side?
No. No, I promise. It's just the deer meat.
You're a fucking animal.
It's awfully quick to judgment. Considering you and your friend killed how many men?
They didn't give us a choice.
And you think we have a choice? Is that it? You kill to survive. And so do we. We have to take care of our own, by any means necessary.
So now what? You gonna chop me up into tiny pieces?
I'd rather not. Please tell me your name.
You're so full of shit.
On the contrary, I've been quite honest with you. Now I think it's your turn. It's the only way I'm going to be able to convince the others.
Convince them of what?
That you can come around. You have heart. You're loyal. And you're special.
Oh.
You stupid little girl. You are making it very difficult to keep you alive. What am I supposed to tell the others now?
Ellie.
What?
Tell them that Ellie is the little girl that broke your fucking finger!
How did you put it? Hmm? Tiny pieces. See you in the morning, Ellie.
Joel wakes up after Ellie's transformation into a complete badass, and David's stereotypically villainous, "we aren't so different, you and I" speech. He's obviously not doing so great after falling on that rebar, even with medicine, so the player is almost just as hampered as they were with Ellie. In Joel's case, you primarily just move slower than before, but he also gets knocked back more by bullets and melee hits, the same as Ellie. Joel doesn't let a simple stomach wound stop him from going after Ellie, though.
You wait here. Now, the girl. Is she alive?
What girl? I don't know no girl.
Fuck! Focus right here, right here. I'll pop your goddamn knee off. The girl.
She's alive. She's David's newest pet.
Where?
In the town. In the town.
Now you're gonna mark it on the map. And it better be the same exact spot your buddy points to. Mark it.
It's right there. You can verify it. Go ask him. Go on. I tell you, I ain't lying. I ain't.
Fuck you, man. He told you what you wanted. I ain't telling you shit.
That's all right. I believe it.
No, wait!
From this point on, the perspective switches between Joel searching for Ellie and Ellie trying to escape out of David's camp. Ellie's escape proves to be one of the more frustrating sequences in the game, due to the trial and error aspect of it. For a game that has let you tackle encounters any way you want, it feels incredibly limiting to be forced into this mandatory stealth segment. Sure, you can try to take out each enemy one by one, but with only a pocket knife, that rarely proves fruitful. Now, I know I just railed on a mandatory stealth sequence, but I actually don't mind this upcoming one.
How did you do it? It's all right?
Naughty Dog impressively creates a boss battle out of this encounter of David, and it works. It just wouldn't work if David stormed into this restaurant in full body armor and you had to kill him by shooting him in the head 20 times, like most other video games. Till this point, Naughty Dog had focused on making this world realistic, and that really wouldn't fit. So this boss battle is a stealth encounter that's fun once you realize that all you have to do is avoid the broken plates. It's very cathartic because both you as a player and Ellie want to get revenge on David, and toying with him is fun in a weird way. David underestimates Ellie even after everything she has done, and she uses that to her advantage. She sneaks around him while he searches for her, and after stabbing him in the back a couple times, he knocks Ellie out temporarily. She wakes up and there's no sign of David anywhere, but she does see his machete.
I knew you had heart. You know, it's okay to give up. Ain't no shame in it. I guess not. Just not your style, is it?
Fuck you.
You think you know me? Huh? Well, let me tell you something. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's okay. It's me. It's me. It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Joel.
It's okay.
Winter acts as almost a self-contained story within itself. And that's one of the main reasons I feel people think so highly of this season. The season starts off with Ellie being introduced to the villain of the season and ends with his death. He's also the only quote-unquote villain in the whole game, and I feel that people can latch onto a story more when there's a villain they're rooting against. Not to mention that he is actually a great villain, and Nolan North is truly unrecognizable as him. That combined with how Fall ended, and how lost you are at the start of Winter, draws the player in more than any other section of the game. Yet. So with that, let's move on to the fourth and final season of the game, Spring. Spring starts in Salt Lake City with Ellie looking at a mural of a deer, symbolizing everything she survived in winter. The Fireflies are supposed to be holding out in the Salt Lake City hospital, and it's not long before Joel and Ellie catch sight of it. The closer they get to the hospital, Joel starts to suspect something is wrong with Ellie. She's not talkative and seems distracted by something. This is actually reflected through the gameplay in a genius way too. By this point, you've gotten so used to seeing Joel's boosting animation that you inherently know exactly how long it takes and exactly what the animation will look like. So in this moment where it starts as a normal boost, you're taken aback when Ellie doesn't immediately start her side of the animation. It's such a smart piece of design because rarely do you see developers change their animation for basic things like climbing in their games, let alone near the end of their game. This small moment happens due to the actual gameplay and isn't part of just some random cutscene. It's one of the many moments in The Last of Us that ingeniously tells the story through its gameplay. Although Ellie was clearly distracted by something that was bothering her before, when she starts to push down the ladder, she becomes distracted by something she sounds thrilled about. What follows is the most beautiful scene in The Last of Us. So I'm just going to let this scene play out for a minute because it's just so great. And the music, God, I can't say enough about it.
Don't scare it.
I won't.
What are you doing?
It's all right. Come here. There you go. Hurry up. Come on.
Hey there. So fucking cool. Aw, where's it off to? Here, come on, let's go.
Slow down, kiddo.
Come on. Oh, man. Wow. Look at those things.
So, is this everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
We don't have to do this. You know that, right?
What's the other option?
Go back to Tommy's. Just be done with this whole damn thing.
After all we've been through. Everything that I've done. It can't be for nothing.
On my first playthrough of The Last of Us, I knew that something bad was going to happen soon. As I mentioned earlier, anytime something good happens in The Last of Us, something bad is right on its way behind it. Not to mention, heading into this game, it's hard not to make assumptions on how the game will end. There's been countless pieces of media with a similar storyline to The Last of Us. A morally gray hero has to escort someone across a long distance in the hopes of survival. You've probably heard this countless times. Just look at the year before with the Walking Dead game. Not to mention movies like Children of Men and books like The Road have very similar stories. So heading into this game, you're guessing that it'll end with one of the main characters dying or sacrificing themselves for the other, and tears will be shed. I couldn't get any of that out of my head after this giraffe scene. It felt like the final happy coda for both of these characters I've grown to love so much. Of course, I'm not going to talk about the ending yet, though. We still have another heart-wrenching scene with Joel and Ellie to talk about right after that.
I got something for you. Here. Maria showed this to me and I stole it. I hope you don't mind.
Well, no matter how hard you try, I guess you can't escape your past. Thank you.
This scene only caused me to dread the ending even more, because it felt like these characters were reaching their natural conclusion. It feels like Naughty Dog is finally getting to these moments you've been waiting for throughout the whole game. And what's left to happen after that? Well, what's next is the toughest encounter yet. You have to go toe-to-toe with multiple runners, clickers, and 2 bloaters at once. Luckily, the encounter takes place in a large tunnel, so you can kite all of them around pretty easy. I always enjoy this encounter on my playthroughs because I just go hog wild on these guys. I throw everything I have at them, and I still manage to barely squeak by. It's a cathartic fight, and you feel such a huge sense of accomplishment after you take out the last infected. Once they're all dead, making it through the rest of the tunnel proves easier said than done. The tunnel is heavily flooded, so Joel and Ellie have to play the floor is lava to make it to the end.
Oh no, down goes Sean! No! And with that, the Vertsy triplets have no chance of victory and are out of the game.
And as you can see, Joel proves to be just as terrible as that guy there. Ellie almost drowns trying to save Joel, but surprisingly, the two of you are saved by the Fireflies. Yes, Joel and Ellie have finally found the Fireflies. Marlene is there, completely marveled as to how Joel actually managed to get Ellie there in one piece, considering she lost most of her Fireflies on the way to this facility from Boston.
And Ellie?
She's all right. They brought her back. You came all this way. How'd you do it?
It was her. She fought like hell to get here. Maybe it was meant to be.
I lost most of my crew crossing the country. I pretty much lost everything. And then you show up, and somehow we find you just in time to save her. Maybe it was meant to be.
Take me to her.
You don't have to worry about her anymore. We'll take care
I
of her.
worry. Just let me see her, please.
You can't. She's being prepped for surgery.
The hell do you mean, surgery?
The doctors tell me the cordyceps, the growth inside her, has somehow mutated. It's why she's immune. Once they remove it, they'll be able to reverse engineer a vaccine. A vaccine.
But it grows all over the brain.
It does.
Find someone else.
There is no one else.
Listen, you were gonna show me where she...
Stop. I get it. But whatever it is you think you're going through right now is nothing to what I have been through. I knew her since she was born. I promised her mother I would look after her.
Then why are you letting this happen?
Because this isn't about me, or even her. There is no other choice here.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that bullshit.
March him out of here. He tries anything, shoot him. Don't waste this gift, Joel.
Get up. I said get up. Go on. Move. I said move. Give me an excuse.
Which way?
What the fuck you doing? Keep walking. I said keep walking.
Where was the operating room? I ain't got time for this.
Where?
Top floor, the far end.
Whew. So this story took a turn, huh? And goddamn do I love this turn. The player's thinking throughout the whole game, I'd do anything to make sure these characters survive to the end. Well, guess what? To do that, you have to kill the Fireflies you've been trying so hard to actually get to. Now sure, Marlene escalated things a little bit by telling that Firefly to shoot Joel if he resists. But he clearly isn't realizing how important this actually is. At this point, it's clear Joel views Ellie as a surrogate daughter, and he knows that he can't survive losing another one. He's finally found something to actually survive for, and he's not going to let anyone take that from him. Endure and survive. Sure, you could potentially sneak by all of these Fireflies, but that is almost impossible. That's because Naughty Dog wants you to feel the weight of Joel's choice here. No matter if you disagree with him, you still have to go through the same motions that a player who actually agrees with him would. I love this. Most games with multiple endings fall flat for me. Very rarely do you feel like this was your actual story, and not just a half-assed ending out of many. When it comes to games with multiple endings, I always go for the good ending no matter what, because chances are that's the ending the developers spend the most time on. To make me go for a bad or morally gray ending, I need to feel like I'm actually in the main character's shoes, and picking the same decision he or she would. Now, I don't agree with Joel's decision to save Ellie here, but if this was a choice, chances are I'd make the same decision. That's due to how well these characters have been developed throughout the whole game. You knew exactly how Joel was going to react before he put a bullet in that Firefly's stomach. It's inevitable, and you better pray that you aren't caught in his destructive wake. These Fireflies sure do put up a hell of a fight, though. Almost all of them are armored from head to toe, so your guns are useless against most of them. The next few fights are the most grueling of the whole game, but they're also some of the most fun. The environment is very similar to the research center, and it plays very similarly. You have a lot of routes to take to flank enemies, but they can just as easily end up behind you. Good thing you can pick up a new weapon, an M16, off of some of the enemies that ends up being a godsend. Ammo goes quick, but it's hard not to feel overpowered with this assault rifle compared to what you've been using up until this point. Bricks are still number one in my heart though. Love all my brick boys out there. Once you either sneak past or take down these fireflies, you find multiple voice recorders with recordings left by the actual surgeon and Marlene herself. The surgeon talks about how this could potentially save the world, and all the sacrifices they have made will finally be worth it. Melanie's recordings go over her dilemma over whether or not to sacrifice Ellie or not. She's known Ellie since she was a baby, and was even close with her mom Anna. You can tell by these recordings how difficult of a choice this was for Marlene, and she even points out that she doesn't really have a choice at all. How can you convince your followers that saving one girl is worth potentially the whole human race? Now, you don't know a lot about Marlene's backstory, but she's just as close with Ellie as Joel is at this point. She makes the right decision, though. As hard as it is for her to say bye to Ellie, she knows how important this actually is, and that Ellie would agree. Which makes what happens next incredibly haunting.
Sweet Jesus. What are you doing in here? I won't let you take her. Don't come any closer. I mean it.
Fucking animal!
Carrie, shut the hell up.
Come on, baby girl. I got you. I got you. Oh, shit.
No matter what you do, you have to kill the surgeon. You could sneak past every firefly because you didn't agree with Joel. And at the end of the day, you still have to kill an innocent. Naughty Dog wants you to feel complicit in everything Joel has done. It's like they know exactly what the player has felt at every moment of the story, and know how much they care about these characters at this point. Naughty Dog wanted the player to feel so much for these characters that they do anything for them to get safely to the end. Well, to do that, you have to sell your soul. Joel sprinting through the hospital with an unconscious Ellie while muttering, "We're gonna be okay," hits so hard. This character you've come to love and admire just potentially doomed the whole human race and is ranting like a madman. I don't think I have ever lost respect for a character within a game. Either I gain it and it stays there, or it never was there in the first place. The fact that my opinion changed on Joel by the end of the game, but I still understood exactly where he was coming from, is incredible. That's such a hard accomplishment in any piece of media. And it's as powerful as it is because it is a video game.
You can't save her. Even if you get her out of here, then what? How long before she's torn to pieces by a pack of clickers? That is, if she hasn't been raped and murdered first.
It ain't for you to decide.
It's what she'd want. And you know it. Look. You can still do the right thing here. She won't feel anything.
Video games have an inherent advantage in regards to bringing you closer to characters. You spend dozens of hours with the characters of a story potentially, and due to that, it's hard not to feel close to them by the end. But you spend dozens of hours with characters on TV shows also, and HBO's even working on a Last of Us TV series currently. If that show adapts the story of the game, I'm going to make a bet that its ending won't be as successful as the game. That's because you are controlling Joel while he does these terrible things.
What the hell am I wearing?
As I mentioned before, you're just as complicit as Joel in this, and that makes his turn hit even harder. It's hard to even call what he does a turn, considering the whole game has explored how terrible he was in the past. And you've already seen him torture two people to save Ellie. It's a genius story decision that is all the more powerful because it is a video game. Woof. Hope you're still there because we still have a lot of ground to cover.
People that are immune. There's dozens, actually. damn bit of good neither. They've stopped looking for a cure. I'm taking us home. I'm sorry.
Wait! Let me go. Please.
You just come after her.
It's what she'd won. Marlene knows it, the player knows it, and even Joel has to know it. He not only potentially doomed the world, but he also takes that decision out of Ellie's hands. At the start of this season, Ellie seemed to be distracted and distant from all of the trauma she experienced in Winter. On closer examination, I think she was so distant because she knew there was a chance that she might lose her life when she finally gets to the Fireflies. That's why her mood changes completely after she sees the giraffes. It's such a beautiful moment for her and Joel, and I feel that made it all the more easy for her to finally come to terms with her potential death. If that was her last memory in life, she would be happy with it. Now, instead, she and Joel get to live, but their relationship will most likely be ruined in the process. Once again, you're playing as Ellie, but this time you're completely in her mindset. At the start of Winter, Ellie clearly knows more than the player about the current state of affairs, but here, you know more than her. You're supposed to view Joel through her eyes here, and see him for who he truly is. A broken man in a broken world. I don't hate Joel, and I don't think he's a terrible man. Sure, any number of the Fireflies who saw what he did would describe him as such, but a lot of people would have done the same in his shoes. Their world is nothing but people trying to survive. They can either go about it two ways, the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is to not trust anyone and kill anyone who crosses you. The hard way is the diplomatic way, trusting your life in others and building relationships. The only way their world will heal is to trust others and build bonds. Joel slowly starts to come around to that idea by the end of the game, but he turns back into the same old person as soon as the person he loves is threatened. He inadvertently hurts and potentially destroys Ellie and his relationship in the process.
Hey, wait. Back in Boston? Back when I was bitten? I wasn't alone. My best friend was there. And she got bit too. We didn't know what to do. So... she says... let's just wait it out. You know, we can be all poetic and just lose our minds together. I'm still waiting for my turn.
Ellie.
Her name was Riley, and she was the first to die. And then it was Tess. And then Sam.
None of that is on you.
You don't understand.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And you... no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Initially, I didn't know what to think about this ending. I wanted to see if Joel and Ellie's relationship deteriorates, and if it will ever be healed. It's hard to make a sequel to a story that ends with the world being doomed, though, so the chances didn't seem high for a sequel. Naughty Dog announced a prequel DLC following Ellie before she met Joel soon after The Last of Us' release, which you can look forward to my impressions on next week. And in 2016, Naughty Dog announced The Last of Us Part 2. The statement from Neil Druckmann read, "Ellie and Joel are back for another intense, harrowing, and emotional adventure." After beating The Last of Us 2, I really wish they hadn't returned, in all honesty. But that's an analysis for another day. Well, 2 weeks away, in fact.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
I want to thank you so much for watching this video. It really means so much to me. Comment below what you thought of The Last of Us and if you agreed with the decision Joel made at the end. The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time, and I had a lot to say about it. If you like or dislike this format, please let me know. I plan on this Looking Back series to be my spot to talk about games that mean a lot to me from years prior. Games that have come out in 2020 like The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima will get analyses also, but I plan on them not covering every beat of the game like I have here. And check back out on my channel next week to watch the next video in my Looking Back series. Looking back at The Last of Us Left Behind in 2020.